How are you today?
How is the lockdown?
Well, the lockdown is good for me. That's why I can get to speak to you like this, sir.
We thank God for everything.
Yes. It's a time to reset the button of the world, as they say. Yeah. And thank you so much, sir, for agreeing to speak to me. The Godfather is the biggest you can find in any industry. So I'm not surprised that we already have so many people queuing up to listen. Princess Debo Odutola, thank you so much. Thank you. So, Daddy, before we start the conversation proper, we have a protocol, but I will do a quick introduction. Chief Olusegun Oshoba, as we all know, is a journalist. I can't describe him with words because he's still a journalist. Till less than 1 hour ago, he was still sending me reports from all over the world. He's so passionate about the profession of journalism. Yes, of course, you also know that he's a politician, a fantastic one at that, a former governor of Ogun State. And what I want to say is that when I arrived in Lagos in 1988, as some of you already know, I used to pray every morning. I would wake up. Chief Ebenezer Obey had just released some song in his name, praising him, and I will kneel down and say, God, please make my life look like that of Chief Oshoba. So you can imagine how privileged I am, sir, to have you. And before you respond, sir, I will play that music that I used to play every morning. Chief Ebenezer Obey sent it to me this afternoon. So we have to thank him later. he said, because I said, I must have that music and play it to Daddy.
Ọmọ Ọ̀ṣọ́ba adírọ̀kùn Mùbárùdé. Ọmọ Ọ̀ṣọ́ba adírọ̀kùn Mùbárùdé. Olúṣẹ́gun ọmọ Ọ̀ṣọ́ba adírọ̀kùn Mùbárùdé. Olúṣẹ́gun ọmọ Ọ̀ṣọ́ba adírọ̀kùn Mùbárùdé. Ṣẹ́gun ọmọ Ọ̀ṣọ́ba. Wọ́n sọ ní Olúṣẹ́gun, Àjàṣẹ́gun, ojoojúmọ́ ló ń ṣẹ́gun, ó ń ṣẹ́gun lójoojúmọ́. Olúṣẹ́gun ọmọ Ọ̀ṣọ́ba yìí, ọkọ̀ abẹ́rẹ́ ìfọ́lá, bàbá Olúfẹ́mi, bàbá Odùbídé, bàbá Olúyìnká, bàbá Olúwàjọ́bí. Ìgbà tí wọ́n bí Ṣẹ́gun ọmọ Ọ̀ṣọ́ba. Wọ́n sọ ní Olúṣẹ́gun, Àjàṣẹ́gun, ojoojúmọ́ ló ń ṣẹ́gun. We take a pause and we continue from there with Daddy. How do you feel tonight listening to that music again?
You are not very clear here. You are echoing.
You're not hearing me?
I can hear you now. You are echoing.
Okay, sir. I hope it's much better now.
No, go ahead. Go
Yes.
ahead.
I said, how do you feel listening to that music now?
Well,
Because that's a long time.
I thank God that God made you bigger than I am. I never got to be a publisher. All my life. You are a publisher, an employer of labor. So it gives me great joy to listen to that. And God had your prayer beyond what I even wanted, beyond what I pray for you. It's you I thank God for.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, I wanted you to give us a bit about your life. You started life very early, and you acquired what we call street sense. I have two of your books right here. There is one by Mike Awuyifa, my former boss at Concord. You can see it. And I have the battle lines. Yes, that was by Mike Awuyifa and Dig by Igwe. God bless his soul. Two great bosses of mine at Weekend Concord. And this is the latest one. So I've been looking at it, and I can see that God has been extremely kind to you, Daddy. Could you tell us a bit about your background, sir?
Well, I would say that God has been not just kind, over kind. Chief Bishop Akode and I were exchanging messages on WhatsApp yesterday, and he was making fun of me watching Tafawa Balewa visit America. Well, that I made it good, but Tafawa Balewa said yes. The Tafawa Balewa story was the first foundation of my journalistic career, and we reviewed how I became editor of Lagos Weekend, Daily Times, Nigeria Herald, Church, and back to Daily Times, and God was kind that I made a success of the three newspapers. It's God's doing, and we must give glory to God for being overkind in every aspect of life. Aujale always tell me that the Yoruba saying that the evening of our life should be greater. He said, for me, God has been kind to me. The beginning of my life was brilliant. The midday of my life was great. And at the evening of my life is great.
Yes. Very early in life, you were a member of the Boys Club. How was it in those days?
Well, I can tell you that education is not complete without a young person being streetwise. As a young man, I was introduced to Osogbo Recreation Club, which is an expatriate club then, and I was inducted into boxing section. At 10, I was a boxer.
Wow.
In Lagos, at 15, I was a strong member of Alakoro Boys and Girls Club, which was founded 2 years earlier. And through the then Boys and Girls Club in Lagos, Lafiaji Boys and Girls Club, Ologbo Boys and Girls Club, so many of them, we were trained to do social services. And I can tell you, there, we got to know how to be streetwise. So for anybody to be educated, your education must be broad-based. And I can tell you that my education was so broad-based, right from primary school to secondary school. I was virtually in every club at Methodist Boys High School. I was in Scouting, Red Cross, the Basic Society, all societies. So education is an all-embracing project for me.
Wow. Could you tell us about the schools you attended? I can see some people from Methodist. They are hailing you online right now.
I went to primary school at African Church School, Osogbo, and while in Osogbo, the masquerade festival by the indigenous of Osogbo, we used to join them, and our parents must not know that we ever had anything to do with masquerades, Egungun festival then. And Osun Osogbo was another one. We used to sneak out, and they must not know. The only one they knew about was Christmas. We used to get the drums in the church, and we formed a small band, and we used to play for our parents in the Egbatedo area of Osogbo, the Egba quarters. So I had my beginning in Osogbo before coming to Methodist Boys High School in Lagos.
And from Methodist Boys High School, you went to Unilag to do journalism?
Yes. Methodist Boys High School was a strong foundation because the motto of the school is non-CB sed alice, which means not for ourselves, but we must live our life for others. And the school hymn was a great inspiration, Land of Our Birth. We made a pledge when we entered the school in 1956. Land of Our Birth, we pledge today. And our pledges include the fact that we shall serve the country. And we were made to, the last stanza says, for whose dear sake our father died. O motherland, we pledge to thee, head, heart, and hand through the years to be. So the school hymn was inspirational. The school song was also inspirational. The school song says, be a hero. Land is opening up before you. Youthful life. So great. God from above is watching over you. Be a hero in the fight. So we are taught to be a hero in anything we do. And whatever we do must be not for ourselves, but for others. That was a guiding principle that has influenced my life all throughout. Methodist Boys High School was a great school and a foundation for everything that I have today.
So you, at what stage did you go into journalism, sir?
Funny enough, when I left school, my Sunday school teacher, Ogudia, was a city engineer in the city council. And I was recruited into the city council in Lagos as building inspector. Even though I didn't have any engineering background, I was taught how to do inspection, to inspect houses, foundation level, PVC level, when you get to reinforced level for first floor. And so I was building inspector for 2 years, 62 and 63. I went to I used to write letters to the editor. From there, I just invited me to Daily Times.
Wow.
And instantly gave me a job as a reporter. I went to Unilag to do law. But by the time I spent 2-3 months, and now I recommended that I should be taken out of the training school and be on my own. So that was what aborted my interest in law. And I just finally nailed it by sending me to the University of Lagos for a diploma in journalism sponsored by the International Press Institute. It was supposed to be a foundation for a school of journalism for mass communication that we now have. But the crisis in the University of Lagos then over an injury as Vice Chancellor, Bill Baku being appointed to replace him, disrupted everything. So after our course, they were only able to do only one more before the program was withdrawn by the International Press Institute, and the funding was withdrawn. But Elijah Kode did well by taking it to MPAN headquarters in Blefu Street, which now became the foundation of NIJ, the Nigerian Institute of Journalism, which we have today as monolithic college for journalism.
Wow.
Not polytechnic, monotechnic.
Yes, sir.
Doing just journalism, not poly.
It seems.
Of the first order.
Can you tell us your reminiscences of him?
He, a fantastic man, a man who led by example. Even as chairman and editorial director, he is not happy until he has walked through the newsroom, check what is going on, and most of the time when stories are tough, he will come and cast the headline. The famous headline, Akintola Taku, remained adamant when he refused to step down as Premier of Western Region. He was one who cast that headline, Akintola Taku.
And we still use it till today.
Till today, and then he was one who cast the headline, if you tackle me, I will double you. That's the part of the lexicon of the language in Nigeria. They are not just fantastic journalists, first class.
You are reputed to have been probably the greatest reporter ever in Nigeria. Can you give us some of the stories that you broke that gave you that honor?
I'll just say I'm lucky. I won't say I'm the greatest reporter. The only thing is that I celebrate reporting. And I still say till today that I'm still living as a reporter. I don't describe myself as a journalist. I enjoy reporting. Well, before Tafawa Balewa's story in 1966, I had covered so many big stories. For example, Gbolapo Ogunsowo and I covered importation of a Mercedes 600, I think by Joseph Tucker. How can a public officer import a Mercedes 600 long wheelbase? It was an exclusive story. Before then, there was a major labor problem at the then Kingsway stores. The Kingsway stores of those days at time was the combination of Harrods, Selfridges, and John Lewis combined. And Esparte slapped a Nigerian sales lady. And I broke the story. In spite of all the effort by the management of the UAC to bribe us out of writing the story, I was the only one who wrote the story and followed the story. So before Tafawa Balewa's story happened, I had many excuses for. But then Tafawa Balewa was a major breakthrough. Funny enough, after Tafawa Balewa, I still had some major stories. For example, when the coup that saw Gowon out of office occurred, I had deep inner story of what happened of General Bishop before he died years ago to give me the go ahead to disclose to Elijah Joseph before he died the source of my major information that day. It was General Bishop who gave me a rundown of how who nobody expected to be the head of state, emerged. Because when the coup was announced by Joe Gaba, all throughout the day, they were meeting, they couldn't decide on, they couldn't reach conclusion on the head of state. So it was General Bishop. What I want to bring out is that in life, a successful reporter must keep his contact. I knew General Bishop, many of these military people during the Civil War, like General Tafawa, General Ben Babangida, Ike Wachuku, Air Marshal Abbas, Air Marshal Bello, all of them are used to social leader. We used to roam around the nightclubs of Lagos in those days. Although I don't drink and I don't smoke, and up to today I still don't drink and I still don't smoke. Then we used to run around from Ambassador Hotel, where we go and dance to the Friday, Bosu and then and go to Kakadu to dance to Fela Naso Kuti. From Fela, we will go to Thomas Benson on Saturday at Kaban Bamboo, and on Sunday we'll end up with Gerard Tupido and Sule Night Club. Only yesterday, Admiral Kobeni was reminding me of the song say, yeah, yeah, I feel all right. One time, bam. Two times, bam, bam. So I had a life full of fun, full of socializing. And so a good reporter must socialize, must keep contact. And to tell you again, when Dimka staged his coup against Murtala, the day he was caught, I was fortunate to be in Enugu that day. And Tafaru Tinubu was then Commissioner of Police in Enugu. As he saw me, and the governor got there, he asked, I said, where are you? So I followed him in to where Dimka was, and everything that Dimka said, I was there. And I spent 2 weeks writing different aspects of that story in the Herald. And that was one of the stories that shut up Herald to become a national newspaper.
Okay, for example, I remember when I was young, Ebenezer Obey sang, Ajala traveled all over the world. Ajala traveled all over the world. Was it really true that Ajala traveled all over the world?
It's true, because when he came back to Nigeria, I have his picture, the picture I took with him. I was a young boy in Form 2, I think, 1957.
Wow.
And Ajala, I haven't gone around I have the picture I took with him. I was one of those who went to welcome him for going around the world on a scooter. And you were talking about other stories. For example, the story of the man who was thrown across the border to Niger, the majority leader in the then House of Assembly under Goni. I came across the story by accident, and I was the one who broke the story of what's his name again? He was thrown across the border, fell from Borno. It's a pity Goni died yesterday. It hit me. I was the one who broke the story. And when Taiwo died, I and the secretary of the government, Abato, were the one who went to search for his body and found it on the way to Ofa. So there are so many stories that I've had to cover in my life as a reporter.
Wow. Okay, what would you say are the most important tools a reporter must have to be successful?
Any new record coming out of United States of UK, but then we're dancing to international artists. My friends all over the world will send it to me immediately. And my house was the first place to hear Eddie Best record.
Wow.
And so, if we are at a party and the party is not moving well, my friend would come and say, let's move to the house. And I had a bungalow in Edinburgh, and it became a clearing house for people like dance. Wow. I remember when Rivers of Babylon, like the Rivers of Babylon, late Aboderi, had his fracture in his arm that day. He was bouncing up and down, dancing by the Rivers of Babylon, because that record came out first in my house. So in the podcast, I was an extrovert, but I never drank, I never spoke, so I didn't lose my head at any point. A reporter must be a man that gives confidence. All my contacts all over the years, people like late Sunday Awoniyi was a very good contact for me. And that whatever information I have, I know the limit of what to use and what not to use. I can go mention all of them, we all grew up together. They got to the top of their profession, and I got to the top of my profession. Because I met LB Awoniyi when I was covering the program in the north when the Igbos are being killed. It was then the private sector. Before then, when I went to cover Tafawa Balewa, it was then private secretary to Tafawa Balewa. And from there, we became close friends. So you have to have the ability to keep your contact, maintain their confidence, and for them to be able to say, well, if we say anything to...
We have to move with the times. Yes, sir. I wanted you to tell us about your trajectory moving from one newspaper to the other until you left journalism.
Well, you see, everything in my life is in God doing. I became the editor by accident of the coup that brought Murtala in. Friend, Sunday only wanted me to go to Ilorin to help to revive the Nigerian Herald. And being a man about town, I couldn't understand how I could survive in a quiet setting like the capital of Kwara State, Ilorin. Eventually, I rejected the offer. But when the government took over the times, again, SB only being a first-class administrator, turned the whole thing into secondment, which means that the government that now owns 60% in the daytimes seconded me to the Nigerian Herald. So I was virtually forced to go to Herald. And that was how I landed in Herald. And as God will have it, events happened that Herald became number one forefront in covering those events. And from Ilorin, it became a threat to even the greatest newspaper then, Daily Times. But when Dika was caught, I was in Enugu, and I was finding story from Enugu because I had a radio phone. And eventually, we were able to make Herald to be independent financially into another village paper. I had to leave. And then again, moved to Sketch. But fortunately, in Sketch, all those that were the publishers, the then governors, particularly Chief Bola Ige, Chief Bisi Onabanjo, they were absolute freedom. Baba Ajasin, the then governor in Ondo, didn't even bother about what we were doing. Because of the free hand that we had, we were able to turn around the forces of Sketch, the government our own Sketch. And that was how I was able to turn Sketch around. And of course, when Elijah Joseph was now invited to help reorganize the daytime, which had been killed by the then MPN government because it became virtually an MPN paper. He recommended it to Idiago, who happened to be somebody I know. And the current president, Gerald Buhari, was the one who now appointed me on June 12, 1984 as managing director of Daily Times. And as God will have it, I and Tony Momo had the job of turning a dying Daily Times back to profitability. And within 1 year, due to financial engineering, we were able to turn around Daily Times and pay dividend to shareholders a year after. So that has been my fortune from managing 3 different newspapers and God making the 3 newspapers successful financially.
Times about the same time, sir?
Oh, yeah. Dr. Abiola came to Daily Times when I was, I think, deputy editor of the Sunday or deputy editor of the Daily. She came from the United States. Very strong lady. But then, the prejudice of men in the production room they can't understand why they can't reconcile themselves into a lady coming to the production room to give them instruction. And I used to tell her then that she should just go there, close her eyes, pretend not to see them. You call it stone room, because at that time, setting was done by typesetting. It's not now that you do setting on the computer. And I used to be the one to encourage her to go and face the men and break their prejudice. And she's successful. She came in as a writer, editorial writer, and later became features editor of the later before going back to go and read for her PhD.
Life was good then, Daddy. Life was very good.
The professor, the pride, the joy. We had dedication, we had determination, and we combined respect.
Wow. When I came to Lagos in 1988, there was a troika I used to hear about. The troika of Chief Olusegun Oshoba, Mr. Peter Ajayi, and Mr. Felix Adenaike. How did you three strike that cordial relationship?
Well, I would say that it's due to respect for each other and also due to our being highly professional. At a point, I like just because Baba Femi Awolowo became closer to me professionally when some people went to report me to him that I was not using the sketch the way Tribune was being used. I went to him and said, look, if we behave like Tribune, we have better money, we will destroy Tribune. So I told him that he should let Tribune editorial policy be pro UPN, and that our own editorial policy should be more liberal than Tribune, and that when the fiery writers like Tola Adeniyi write their columns in the Tribune, we should have more level-headed political writers in the sketch. Papa Awolowo being intellectual in thinking, some reasoning that our editorial policy must be different from the Tribune so that we don't kill the Tribune. And so eventually brought Adenaike to come and be editor-in-chief, editorial director of the Tribune. And we became a major force.
You were too powerful. Too powerful.
Papa said, you three musketeers. But then, you see, the counterweight to Three Musketeers was our friends on the other side, particularly some of them, good friends from the north, used to call us the Lagos Ibadan Axis. Men like Ismail Isa, because by the time I came to Daily Times, Felix was in Tribune, Peter was in Sketch. The three major newspapers in Nigeria then were in the hands of myself, Peter, and the axis of the media. We are progressive in our policy. The one thing is that as close as we are, we never put close into what the other was doing. We had rivalry professionally, but no rivalry as friends. The family remain close, and we are still close to today.
Well, you have come across so many presidents, virtually almost all of them in Nigeria. Can you describe them one after the other, sir?
Let's start with Balewa.
Yes, sir.
I used to cover the parliament. and later covered the airport. Tafawa Balewa was a highly decent, reserved, and he commanded respect, even in his courage. A man of very few words. I can't remember exchanging long words with Tafawa Balewa. All he do is just smile, Segun, how are you? That's all. It doesn't go beyond that. But a lot of his cabinet members were my friends. People like Maitama Sule. Maitama Sule, in his old age, used to tell me that I should not remind him of our days in Lagos, that he had for years forgotten that, and very strong at a party. I used to observe with likes of Papa Echo Davis, the likes of Maitama Sule, ministers in the cabinet of likes of Adiro Ogusa, who was in opposition in NCNC, because I was covering parliament. Then from Tafawa Balewa to Ironsi, I didn't have much to do with Agui Ironsi, because I was very short, I think 6 months in office. But then when Gawon came in, Gawon and I were very, very close, and we are still very, very close today. And I used to quarrel with General Gawon till today. That is part of all my efforts, that he should write his memoirs, Aburi, and the conduct of the Civil War. He kept promising to do it, he didn't do it. Now, get it to 90, I don't know. And I'm accusing you too. In 1993, you came to me in Abeokuta to tell me you are going to do a book on June 12 and Abiola. Till today, my big brother, you are still to complete that project.
I will explain, Daddy. I will explain. Tonight, I will explain it on this platform.
After you were sent out by Abacha. So, going from there to Gawon, I was very, very close to Gawon and Murtala. I had foothold, strong contacts in the two governments. And by the time Murtala came in, I was very, very strong in that government. Then from Murtala now to Obasanjo. In fact, Obasanjo depended on us in Herald to give objective counter view to what he believed was doing Nigeria's little bit of a little, not antagonistic, but not the kind of friendliness that he wanted. And he used to tell us that Herald was his first paper. So I had, in all the government, I had good, for example, General Abdul Mohammed was a very close friend of Peter Ajayi in Ilorin. The day he went to the military, Peter went into journalism. So I was very strong in that government as well. Then came to Shagari. Of course, many of the ministers in Shagari, people like Alex Supu, who was invited and asked to be trustee of the MPN, is a very close friend, was a very close friend of mine. Late Minister of Defense, Akobi Oniyogi, so many of them were in the Shagari's government were my very, very close friend. And I became close to Alex Ekweme too. And then from Alex Ekweme, from Shagari to Buhari, of course, I became director of the Times in Buhari government. And Idiagbo was somebody who had taken interest in journalism right from his young days as a young officer. Whenever he came to Ilorin, his first port of call was the Herald. So, in the government of Idiagbo Buhari, I can tell you that I was an insider because the current Oba Okukenu, Adedotu Gbadebo, the Alake of Ibadan, was the principal staff officer to Idiagbo, equivalent of, well, deputy chief of staff, or whatever you call it, And we were the inner chief cabinet of that government. And when, by the time Babangida came in, of course, Babangida and I had been pali since the 60s.
I saw that. Wow.
Social-wise, Babangida and I and others painted Lagos not red, rainbow. And then from Babangida now to Abacha was the only one that was after me, even though when he was about as GOC, there was nobody who was ever GOC in the Oyo State of Ibadan that didn't relate with us in sketch. A man of very small world. I mean, he doesn't talk much. We knew him in Ibadan. But by the time he came in, because of due trail, I didn't get to get close to him. Because I was lucky, I survived the 3 attempts that his hitmen made to kill me. So then from Abacha now to Obasanjo, well, we came from the same place, but I'm one governor who never requested for anything from him. And he says so when he came on a state visit, I don't want his environmental fund. I don't want his extra budgetary allocation. He is from Ogun State. I said, whatever, he should know Ogun State good, better than I do. And whatever he thinks fit, he should do for Ogun State. I will only advise him to do what is right for Ogun State. Then from Obasanjo, he was considered by Yar'Adua. Yar'Adua and now are governors in 1999. And I had been close to his brother, Shehu Musa Yar'Adua, who was number 2 to Idagbo and to Obasanjo. Shehu was the link between us and Obasanjo's government, the media. We used to have a monthly media session for all the media throughout the country. So, and Shehu Musa Yar'Adua and I were in SDP together. And we all worked for Abiola's election together. So, the younger Yar'Adua became, of course, as a friend. Even though I was 80, he gave me some board appointment. He allocated some board appointment to me. And he was the one who gave me the national honor, Commander of the Order of the Niger, CON. And Jonathan came in. I never had a one-on-one with Jonathan at any time, but all the Queen government I knew very well. From Jonathan, managed the media. You are one of those who manage the media under the control of the Minister of Transportation, Amechi. So I'm now in APC. I'm still APC. Say whatever anybody says, I will not deny. I am part of this government, and I'll take responsibility as an elder, a family member of APC, for whatever is happening now. I take responsibility as well.
Now, I know this is going to be a difficult one, Daddy. Of all these presidents, who would you say was the most successful? Let's remove Buhari from it because Buhari is still in government. So I will spare you that. But of all the other ones, who do you think came close to rescuing Nigeria?
Different times, different strokes. You cannot make up all server. The challenges at different times. I mean, Gawon had the Civil War challenge. Buhari, in the first coming, had the problem of a depressed economy and had to go for trade by barter. So each government had different challenges. I forgot to mention the closest to me was General Absalami Abubakar. In fact, he made it a duty to consult me all throughout his tenure. AD was not to be registered. I pleaded with him. He registered AD, even though we did not meet all the necessary conditions. And I can tell you, some of the ministers in General Absalami Abubakar's government, I had a hand in getting them appointed. They offered me to come and be his minister. But I told them I wanted to go back as governor. So I forgot to mention Absalami Abubakar, who had for many years, whom I became close to, and the wife and now Justice, the former Chief Judge of Niger State, were in the Constitutional Assembly together in 1988, 89, and we also became close. And I can tell you that of all of them, are the closest, and we are still the closest to today. So when you talk of comparison, each had its own challenges. Take, for example, Absalami Abubakar. He had the challenge of the temptation of staying a little bit longer in the office because of the tension generated by the sudden death of Abacha and Chief M.K. Abiola, the winner of the 1993 election. But he kept telling me that he will not, under any circumstance, succumb to that temptation, and that he wanted to get the military immediately out of governance because the involvement of the military in governance was destroying the military. And I thank God that his own handover, of all the handing over that we have ever had, has been the one that is sustained till today. We have had a transition from military to civilian, and I think we have had 4 transitions from civilian to civilian, from Obasanjo to Yar'Adua, from Yar'Adua to Jonathan, from Jonathan to President Buhari. So, to me, we underrate the success of General Absalami Abubakar's transition. So he had his own challenge. He overcame the challenge. Everybody, every administration had different challenges. So I don't want, you cannot make comparison. Take, for example, Tafawa Balewa. Stabilize the handing over of the colonial power to the civilian. He was a gentleman. And Papa Bafemi Awolowo always tell me that he has some reasonable understanding of Tafawa Balewa. So you see, different people have different strokes. And so I want to make comparison. You cannot compare today with yesterday. Neither can we not compare today with tomorrow.
Yes, I think there is another very, very powerful Nigerian that we haven't mentioned, Lieutenant General Aliyu Gusau.
Yes.
Very, very.
Is one man that people blackmail us and say we are agent to one exceptional love for journalism and the media. What people don't know is that Ali became close to us because actually he was a friend to Adenaiki when he was acting governor of Ogun State when General Balogun was sent on the course. That was when Felix became his friend. And we kept the relationship. We are one of those who nobody in government will say that we will ever ask for any obligation, any favor from them. And that's why they still respect us till today. I always tell all of them that if you call yourself general, Felix Peter and I, we are field marshal of journalism. We are higher than you people. You are with all of them as young officers. So I don't know how anybody can say that because you are close to a man like Aliyu Gusau. Aliyu Gusau is somebody who nurtured relationship. He was very close to Papa Awolowo. Ali Kuso was the one who arranged to get the passport of Papa Obafemi Awolowo for me to deliver it to Papa when the government came to power. He was the one who arranged to get Papa Awolowo's passport returned to him. He was the one instrumental into returning the passport to all the UPA governors who were detained for no offense whatsoever. Chief Peter Akode is still living. He was one of those I got his passport back for him. And when Papa Awolowo died, Ali Kuso played a major role in the funeral of Papa Obafemi Awolowo. Chief Peter Onobanjo needed to go for medical treatment abroad. He arranged it while he was still in detention. So we have used our influence and connection with these people for the betterment of those around us, not for our own gain. And he's one of the people in government who nurtured and cultivated with media.
A lot of the young people online are not likely to understand what we're doing tonight. This is history. What we're doing is to go down memory lane of history of journalism. And this is a lecture that people will pay to attend at Harvard, at Oxford, or anywhere in the world. And I want to thank you for your wealth of knowledge, for your depth of experience. Where were you on October 19, 1986, when Dele Giwa was killed?
Funnily enough, a day before then, we were at a luncheon hosted by late Wole Adeosun, who was almost sacked when he was MD now. And we stood by him and got him restored. It was at that luncheon that I got a call that the newly appointed Chief of Staff, Admiral Iromu, who want us to stop by in his house at Queen's Drive. When we were there, Dele was complaining to Admiral Iromu that some people were setting up and accusing him of gun running. I think that was October 17th or 18th. On October 19th, I was in the house when a phone call came through to say that Dele Giwa had been shot. I was in the hospital at Akpebi, that roundabout. I was I think one or two came to join me on later there. That was what happened.
Wow. Are you not surprised that so many years after, not a trace?
Well, Nigeria is in riddle. I feel very, very uncomfortable that with our resources, not only have we not resolved Dele Giwa, we have not resolved Bola Ige. Very, 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 very painful, because the last social outing they had was at my wife's 50th birthday, December of that year. He died, I think, on Christmas Eve, or 23rd or 24th. Now, the check he gave to my wife that day is still in my safe, because we hadn't put in the check when he died. And I said this check will remain as a memento, symbol of Bola Ige's love for me and my wife. Is it not terrible that today, Harry Marshall, we have not resolved the death of Harry Marshall. We have not resolved the circumstance of everything. Afolabi was even going to say, for them to Bola Ige.
Papa Rewane.
The other painful one is Papa Rewane.
Yes.
Felisadake, Peter Ajayi, and myself were in the process of putting Papa Rewane's anecdotes. When you are with Papa Rewane, like Awolowo, he will give you anecdotes, events, and we are going to put all those into a book. The week that we are to have the final meeting to start it was when he was killed. Papa Rewane killing has not been resolved. In fact, his closest steward, I think, so many unresolved killings.
Kudirat Abiola, Funshaw Williams,
and Suliat
Adedeji.
Adedeji.
Yes.
Adedeji. Why in this country that we are not able to? Now they are telling us that one of the people who shot and killed the daughter of Baba Fashoranti has COVID-19. I hope they are not planning to kill him in custody. So many unresolved assassination in this country. I don't want to talk too much about it. That's for
yes, I want us to talk about your days in London. We were together in London in the last days of Abacha. Can you recollect how you spent those days, how you got to London? We were together. You actually broke the news of Abacha's death to me. People had called me. I didn't believe them until you confirmed, sir.
What happened was this. I had problem with my back.
I remember.
And I was to do the operation in 1993 when Abiola phoned and pleaded with me to return to Nigeria as governor because I was the leading governor in the fight for June 10th. So I couldn't do the operation. By 1996, the nerve root compression problem that I was, and Peter Ajayi and Ferris had to go and help to retrieve my passport. So it was that operation I came for in 1996, and the post operation is what I then came for in 1997 when Abacha died. Peter and I were coming from Moscow where we went to the International Press Institute annual general meeting. And it was an unbelievable story. Because we just had not believed that Abacha was not playing trick. And that suddenly he may come out again and they say that like the North Korea president, I don't know what is going on. I mean, we were told a week ago that he was dead. Now we are being told that he's been taking rest. So Abacha death on June
8th. June 8th.
1997 was a shocker.
Oh, 1998, sir.
Was it
1998? Yes, sir.
Yeah, we were in London together.
Yes, we used to walk around Swiss Cottage, Chalk Farm, up and down. You were exercising your back.
Because, I keep telling people that my security people the thing they never forgive me was that your wife handed a parcel to me, I think on that trip.
Yes, I remember.
And they were bitter that I did not open the parcel. I collected the parcel to London. The first call I got to London, you are the first to come and meet me that morning.
I
My
know.
friends were asking me to say, was I stopped at the airport? I said, your wife
Thank you, sir.
is
Thank you, sir.
related to my wife in Ijebugo,
Igbo Benny, sir.
and you are my big brother in journalism.
Ah, no, your baby, sir.
On all sides.
No,
We
your
were,
baby.
we were all in Abiola's. You will never put me in any trouble, right?
We will come to you shortly, sir.
I put part of, I put my own record, I put my own information on record, and I've asked people, I've put it on record how the record was formed. I put on record how Abiola and I traversed the whole country. I was the only governor with him throughout. I put on record what happened in Jos. Please, the inside story of your relationship with Abiola, I know that you know about June 12 and emergence of Abiola. Don't let it die with you, please.
My
Or
biggest.
don't let it die at your old age. It's when you get to old age, difficult to write.
I know collaborate on some things, and I kept nudging him on. And then I was supposed to get some materials from Dr. Doyin Abiola. I was also supposed to talk to some members of the family. The biggest gap were the years he spent in detention. I don't know if you have access to any information about the years he spent in detention, Chief Abiola.
Right up to the time he got to detention. He was still in detention when you told me in my house in 1993, late 93 or early 94, in Abeokuta, that you were doing a book.
Yes, we have been on a book even before he went into politics, and then events kept changing. He went into politics. June 12 came. I was detained. July, August. Then from detention, we came out again. He ran away. At that time, that was the time he escaped. Then he came back. We will get there. We will get there. I promise you.
There's this story to be written. Because, for
Loads
example,
of stories.
I'm still thinking of that a second. On some of the private advices that we gave to Abiola, how some people objected to those advices, and how we landed in some of the problems that we landed in today. So don't let it. You see, when you get to old age, it will be very difficult to write. Look, I like that Conde has the best record in the world, in a whole room of colonial days, how Lagos State was fought for, everything, managing tribute, LUJ. He didn't write. The records are there now. He's the only one that can decipher it. At the age of 90, he's too old.
No, it's
I want he had files in a whole room. And his knowledge from being private secretary to Sadana to being close to every government up to Buhari's government, where he was PAMSEC Petroleum, died with him.
Same thing.
You are still young. By the time I was writing my book, remembering a lot of things was a headache. It's good my wife was part of the history. As I told you, she was my co-editor. Editing whatever I write. When I wrote, he said, she was the one who reminded me that I must talk about the wives of Abiola, and reminded me that Abiola put Kudirat in charge of the North. Mrs. Mama Yo, Chief Mrs. BC Abiola was in charge of the Western region, and that Dr. Doyin Abiola was in charge of the Eastern region. That was how, and all the three were involved. She was one who insisted I must crack my brain and put all those things. So many things she reminded me of. So I beg you, while you are still young, and the energy is still there, not at the age of 81, me now. By the time I read a book for 1 hour, I doze off. Those days when I can read a book and finish it, I can read the book. It's
okay. That is there something in the water you drink in Egba land that makes Egba people so great? Wole Soyinka. How is Egba able to produce the best of the best? Prince Bola Ajibola. So many people. Shonekon. I can go on and on and on.
Sir Adetokunbo Ademola,
Ademola.
the first in the music world, Fela Anikulapo Kuti,
Napo.
Babalegba,
Chief Ebenezer Obey.
Sir Shina Peters.
Hmm.
In all aspects, they are Egbas. Well, the thing is this, I will tell you proudly that, you see, Egba history, Egba, we have written history. We have record. I used to say that we are one people that when you get to an average Egba home, you will find a bookshelf. I mean, Fela, grandmother is a Kuti, grandson Kuti. The great grandfather, famous, the grandfather composed the Egba anthem. So I would say that we in Egba we have history. We have people, heroes, starting with Lishabi, who liberated us to go by. And I'm happy. I was always striving to do my best in journalism because the first newspaper happened to have been founded in Abeokuta in 1859. And our great journalist before me was an Egba person. And if you look at this history of professions, most of the first were all Egba. The first doctor, first lawyer, the first accountant is still alive, Akitola.
Williams.
First in everything. So we have heroes that we can look up to that will propel us. Wole Soyinka is still alive, the first laureate, and they are shining examples. Only today, fellows, Tony Allen, today. Close drummer, fellows, his drumming was part of Afrobeat. He's been well celebrated all over the world. On BBC Today, Tony Allen is being celebrated. So you find that the guys have this, we have system. We were not part of Nigeria. Egba was a kingdom. Just like Lagos was Lagos colony. We had the Egba United Kingdom, separate from Nigeria, where the Alake was the president of the Egba United Kingdom, United Government. So it was 1914 that amalgamation that brought us into Nigeria. We were in government ourselves, and the system of governance is still there in the Egba system.
There seems to be a hot rivalry between the Egbas and the Ijebus. So how did you end up marrying an Ijebu Igbo lady?
You go and read my book, The Lady Who Won My Heart.
Yes. I know, my very dear auntie.
It's God doing. The very first day I met her, I knew that this is a wife.
Wow.
Very, very unlike me.
Wow.
I was not about that, but I knew that this is a wife, and it turned out to be. And it helped because at that time, as governor, I killed the issue of rivalry between the Ijebus and Christians. The rivalry is intellectual rivalry. It's not. It's because the Ijebus and the Christians are exposed people. The Ijebus, if you go to Ojúde-Ọba, you will see the splendor, cultural splendor, and the Ijebus have they are most united among many of the tribes in Nigeria. The Regbe. You will see them all dressed people who are born the same period. No matter if you're a billionaire, the man who is giving job contributed to it. There is that bond. So we compare each other. It's just that what we call rivalry is intellectual rivalry. We both aspire for the best, both the Jebus and the Jebus. And I'm happy that my children combine the two. And a bit of Isaleko, because my wife belongs to Lumole family. So I thank God my children have the streetwise of Lagos, the Jebu and the Egba blood all combined together. 3 combinations.
Fantastic. Now, you are the holder of so many chieftaincy titles. Can you tell us some of them and where from? I know you are Kirogun, you are Remo, and all that.
You know, the Akerogun title was 1988. And it was a defining ceremony because I was, when they asked me to bring some old picture, I was looking through my picture, this thing. And when I took the Akerogun album, I couldn't believe the wide-ranging attendance of that ceremony. The late Ooni of Ife spent almost a whole week in Abeokuta, Obasanjo, with the then Oba Yeni, the Owa Orogun of Ila.
Oba Williams Ayeni.
All our elders, Sari Tokunbo Adebola, Sabaka Tony, Papa S. Virtually the whole of Nigeria. So many from the north, all the governors in the then southwest, Rasaki in Abeokuta then, Bode George in Ondo, I think only in Osun came to the ceremony that night in my house. People, everybody who was who in Nigeria, late Mola Diakwa Thomas spent the whole day. All the best musicians, Sonia they played in the afternoon, and Obi took off from there till the following morning. Sonia could dance all night that day. Atenta was the Akerogun was perhaps the greatest that happened then, and that was what threw me into being pressured to come and contest for government. In fact, it was the then Ooni of Ife who called Peter and Felix to say that I must not go for governorship, and we said no way, we are professional. I didn't know that his abolition will come to pass. So Akerogun then, Aremo came in because you will not believe it, Awujale. In 1998, was misled by some politicians, I don't want to name them now, into opposing my candidature. And when I became governor, Awujale was surprised that I first of all devoted all my energy into solving the water problem in Jebu. When the tanker drivers then used to hold the Jebu to ransom. When you are going for the weekend, you have to arrange tanker driver to supply water Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I came in as governor, broke the jinx of the tanker driver, drove them out of Jebu. They restored the old colonial pipes and everything, restored water back to Jebu. The Awujale was so impressed that he from then adopted me as his son. My tenure was truncated on November 17, 1993 by Abacha. And Awujale offered when I was being handed to come and live with him in the palace. And I said, well, you are a traditional ruler, I don't want to. Because Awujale hosted Nadeco in his house. When they're talking of Nadeco, people like Awujale contributed immensely to the struggle for Abiola. So Awujale was so impressed by that situation, and by the time and in hiding for almost a year, he will phone me every day and pray for me. And that culture of talking every day, till today, Awujale and I will talk at least minimum of once, average of twice a day. And that was why he now decided to make me his Aremo. Aremo means the first son, the Chiroma. Of the relationship, and he kept telling me that the day he decided to give me Aremo was the day I commissioned 17 electrification in one local government to 17 towns, and he followed me everywhere. In fact, he said that he should open the royal umbrella. I rejected that. God forbid. How can I have royal umbrella on my head? That was the day he said, okay, you will not be Aremo, and I will entitled to hold to have a bidder walking stick.
Wow.
As Aremo. That was, so Aremo was the second title. The major title again was from the Yewa. The Yewas were happy that has spread development to the area. For example, the road I did in Idiroko to Ikokia in 1992 is still the best road in that axis. So all the Yoruba decided that they'll give me a rapper. So it was based on my project and performance as governor that I got to the two titles.
Fantastic. Well, we're coming close to the end. Well, some people have been writing that Soyinka is from Ishara. I agree, but Egba seems to have claimed him. His house is in Abeokuta.
Yeah, well, yes, he's from Ishara, but all his life was in Ake. Growing up as a Kuti, the Kuti blood is in his blood, and everything was Ake, and that's why his never was titled Ake. He had never denied
Ishara.
The Egbas, again, Egba has the same. That is that we tend to honor our mothers more. And that's why I can tell you, Oba Demola became king from the mother who is the royal house. His father is Owu. But he became the Alake from the mother side. Oba Lipede became Alake from the mother side. Late Agura of Bagura, his father is Ibore, Alake like me, and he became Agura of Bagura, Abiola's section of the exam. So I can give you examples. The mother is Ebalake, and the mother the mother is a princess in Okeano, and the mother became the Yalode of Eba. He ascended the throne from the mother side. In Eba, we are not
civilization.
That if we have natural rulers, if we have our throne, where we have on the other side becoming the lack of a land. What is wrong in Wole Soyinka leading to the mother? Ìdíyà in Egba, Ìdíyà ni à ń pọ̀ sí.
Wow, wonderful. Finally, as an elder statesman, what is your attitude towards the issue of unity in Nigeria? Do you think there is so much division in Nigeria? Do you think it's still very possible, or the politicians will continue to disunite us for their own personal gains?
Yeah, I'm part of the political elite, and I'm part of the problem, because I can tell you, whether we like it or not, power must devolve from the center to the regions. Whether you call it state, we can never, ever, ever sustain the system that we are running now. I always give the example, even UK today, they still call it themselves United Kingdom. I keep asking them, where is the unity? When Boris is talking, he will give a daily briefing. We will give our own briefing, because Westminster has been devolving power to Scotland over the years. The Scots see themselves as a different tribe. The Welsh see themselves as different. The real thing, England is just the one calling itself United Kingdom. Ireland is different. Northern Ireland is still agitating to become part of Ireland. And that was when they were going to exit Brexit. Northern Ireland insisted on its own terms. If after centuries, United Kingdom is no more united, after centuries of democracy, and they are the one who fostered this 1914 amalgamation of laws, and they are the one now devolving power, what makes you think that we can continue? It's impossible. I always give an example of Yugoslavia. I used to think that Marshal Tito was Yugoslavia as a great country. I didn't know that they were different tribes. When the whole thing collapsed, neighbors they were killing each other in thousands. Where is Yugoslavia today? Czechoslovakia, they've gone to Czechs and Slovak. When I was young, we were meant to believe that socialism is the best, communism is the best. And I used to think that communism is everything. Way of life, governance, religion, everything was communism. The first time Felix Peter and I went to Moscow, and they saw a Catholic church, and they went there to worship, we could not believe it. Within the USSR, the United Socialist Soviet Union, the Republic, were so many groups, so many tribes. It took Mikhail Gorbachev to use the Congress of the People. I did not know that Russia was just one country, and the USSR is made of so many. Now today we have Ukraine, Georgia, all of them gone away from the USSR. And in Ukraine today, the democracy is so embedded, you would think that they'll be practicing democracy all their life. A comedian is now the president of Ukraine. That's to show that democracy is even better in Ukraine than in America. So how can we think that if the USSR couldn't sustain communism, they cannot sustain itself as United Kingdom, and we think that we can go on like this? It's impossible. We have to devolve power, and I keep saying, education Kanuri, different from Hausa, different from Igbo, different from Ijaw, different from the Shekina and Europe. We all have different. Our education is cultural. Why should somebody sit in Abuja and be detecting what kind of education in even in housing in the north because of the heat? Thatch roof is the best. The thatch roof gives you air conditioning in the night. Here, you cannot build in Lagos without a strong foundation. In part of the north, you don't even need serious foundation. So it's our way of life, our culture, our living, the way of living, housing, education, we are totally different. So we just have to find a means of devolution, call it restructuring, call it true federalism, call it any name you like.
Wow.
Perestroika in USSR. Perestroika is the same thing as all those talking on stuff. It's not new. Perestroika that Gorbachev did in USSR is the same thing on restructuring. He restructured the country. And that's why Russia is still surviving today. Russia is just one country, lording it over the rest.
A lot of people tend to see our population as a liability. Do you consider it an asset, sir?
In no way is our population a liability. I mean, are we as big as India? India is over 1 billion. India is practicing true democracy, parliamentary democracy. And there has never been any coup. You have to serve in the military from what I heard. I'm not a military man. In your neighborhood. Those that they transfer all over the place are top officers. This man, this kidnapper, is it Collins? They call him the one who was on Collins, who was keeping kidnapping then in the Amuward of him. I think
Evans. Yes.
If have local police, neighborhood police, who know each of the area, that's what I'm talking. It's a neighborhood security network. Those who will know every house. So if they see strange movement, they will easily identify and know that something strange is going on. And it is the neighborhood, the villagers who know their villages. And until we go back, how can we have a centralized police? How can somebody in Abuja be able to police Kanuri, deep down to the border with Niger, Chad, and still police deep down to the neighboring area of Bayelsa, River State, Delta, and go to Ipokia, and go to Tongeji on the Atlantic of the Ogo. If our, I was in a company when we said we should download the reduced staff, and the managers that they were driving, they were transferring some drivers to Port Harcourt. I asked them, I said, are you people serious? Are you going to transfer somebody from Kanuri to come and drive in Lagos? Does he know Ajekule? Does he know Isaleko? Does he know Ikoyi? A driver has to be somebody who has knowledge of his area, like the black cab drivers in UK, in London. They know everywhere. Until we get back to a situation where we have localized security system, this country will never be stable.
Wow. Okay, finally, sir, because so many questions are coming up, we need to speak about COVID-19. You and I were victims of bad journalism recently. I would want you to talk about COVID-19, what we need to do, are we doing enough at the moment, and what you think we should do.
I will start with the kind of journalism that happened in respect of me and you, where out of envy, out of so many things, the shocking thing is that by the time I arrived in Nigeria, all my family around the whole world, in the US, Canada, everywhere, were all phony because we were labeled as if we were on the death row. Not unfair. And it was all started by one small girl who just posted and said everybody who went to London should submit themselves, and they were always started saying that we were treating ourselves in private hospitals. And I phoned Razak Okoya. He said his house is uncomfortable. I phoned Baba Jebu. Baba Jebu told me his house uncomfortable. I phoned Chief Bukola Okunowo. I phoned Senator Anthony. I phoned everybody that we were together in that London.
Eredu was sitting with you.
Yes. And I said, okay, I will serve as I actually announced my own self-isolation. But I'll give you an example. Dr. Olufunwa is my doctor in London. The senior brother, Sunday Olufunwa, we used to live, he was a diplomat in London. We used to live in his house. And he worked with me when I was governor as the GM, Bob Potter. Do you know, he phoned from America to his brother and said he wanted to know the status of Chief Oshoba from his brother. That one was laughing and saying that, but Chief Oshoba is all right. But the blackmail had gone on as if we were all dead. So I've been a victim. So I spent my 15 days total isolation, and then I spent another 28 days because I'm told that I asked a symptomatic person, it will manifest. 28 days passed, nothing manifested until today. I had to do this interview in my son's study. I have not been out of my house. So I've spent close to 1.5 months in self-isolation, complete over 81. So I have had a bad experience, all my friends, everybody, they phone me and say, how are you, sir? Then one day, when I issued the statement that those of us who went to England, nobody has shown symptom of COVID-19. We are on the platform on the APC in Ogun State. The degree of response was too much. Everybody was saying, hallelujah, thank God. Everybody thought I was in self-isolation. There was one friend of mine, Batik Adebi, is a musician, he's a lecturer in music. Kept phoning me every day. I said, Adebi, what is wrong? He said, he's just keeping touch with me because I'm in isolation. I said, no, I'm in self-isolation. My picture was all over the wall. As somebody attended the party and he's been taken to isolation. You see what we went through in COVID-19? But I believe that what I would recommend to people is what I've been practicing. And my doctor says I've been overdoing the building of immunity. First thing in the morning, I steam under hot water with a towel over my head. Somebody sent one Albert oil. I didn't even know. I'd been on my system, on my WhatsApp for about 2 weeks before I saw it. I steam 2 500 milligram every morning, another 500 milligram in the evening. I take my vitamin E and D every day. Now I don't take Coke anymore. I take tonic water because tonic water has quinine. So I will recommend that we don't ignore this practical living by ensuring that we build immunity. I believe I built enough immunity to start any, God forbid, anything can come at all.
Wow. Daddy, some people are saying it should go on ad infinitum, but whatever has a beginning must have an end. And some people have recommended that we must have part 2. Daddy, I know that when we call upon you, you shall answer us again. Thank you so much.
You are a publisher, I'm a reporter.
Daddy, you are the godfather of publishers.
Publisher, you can always call on your reporter.
I dare not.
So once you give a reporter an assignment, it must be done. So
Thank you.
I appreciate you when you started Ovation. And you started the Elite Society magazine. You created an innovation, and that's why I respect the word innovation. You have been very innovative, and people have followed you. And I pray, àdúrà tí wọ́n máa ń gbà ní pé gbogbo ẹ̀yin ọmọ wa, ẹ̀yin àbúrò wa, Ọlọ́run á jẹ́ kẹ́ jù wá lọ. You shall be better, you shall be more successful.
Amen, sir.
I don't ask God for anything anymore at the age of 81. I don't pray to have helicopter, not talk of having private jets. I rather pray that God should give you the private jet and my children. I don't pray to have extra money. The little I have is not for me to have my little food. Whatever wealth that God is blowing, He should blow it to you and my children and all the people I know.
Amen, sir.
I thank God for my life. I pray for you.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Amen, sir.
Greater blessings for the future.
Amen, sir. Sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. This is the first time you need me to come to Toby's house, because I'm not on Instagram to use Toby's Instagram.
To Instagram. No, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Daddy. Thank you so much. And my love to Mommy. Thank you, sir. We end with the music again. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Just the Akirogun music. Yes.
Wọ́n fi jẹ́ Akérògùn, ojoojúmọ́ ló ń ṣẹ́gun, ó ń ṣẹ́gun lójoojúmọ́. Àdènà sóyè kọkà ẹ ṣe àdúpẹ́, Balógun sọ̀yà olú. Bọ́ba Gúnwà ọmọ Abíọ́lá, Dr. Latif Adédìtẹ́, Oyètóyè, Amúléwu, ẹ ṣé àdúpẹ́. Ìgbà tí Ṣẹ́gun tún lòyè, wọ́n fi jẹ́ Akérògùn, ojoojúmọ́ ló ń ṣẹ́gun, ó ń ṣẹ́gun lójoojúmọ́. Olúṣẹ́gun, 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 Olúṣẹ́gun. Ọkọ̀ adé nìṣọ́lá aláwọ̀ ọmọ tágbàdá ọmọ kórówá ọmọ ìwé mọlẹ̀ kọ́lẹ̀ nọ́mbà ọmọ ẹni ṣèmọ̀ mẹ́fà nọ́mbà ó fẹ́ wọ́n.